This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. We're in fight camp, it's week 2. I'm joined by Mr. Dominic Ingle. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, KUGAN. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You're looking well. You're looking very well.
Thank you. You're looking very well as well, but you're always looking well. But
that's the nature of the game, and you've got to keep yourself fit, keep on top of these fighters, and crack the whip, and everything works out in the end.
Sounds good advice. Had the press conference today, all very respectful. Didn't know if there was going to be a little bit of back and forth between the teams and the fighters, but it was all respectful because ultimately it doesn't really matter what gets said today. What matters is what happens in the ring.
Yeah, when the box way back when for the British title, there was a lot going on then, a lot of chit chat, talking, aggravation. And there's a lot of bad blood, and the fight was over. Galahad stopped him, and ever since then, Galahad's helped Jazza out with fights, sparred with him. They've done more around sparring than they have fighting. So there's obviously a respect there, and they're not kids anymore, are they? And at the time, they were both big prospects coming through. There was a lot on the line. And there's always going to be a winner, and on that night was Galahad. So they both know where they are in the boxing careers. And Jazza went down a different route, and he's had some great fights. He's come back, and would have thought years later the British title fight would have turned into a world title fight. So yeah, it's going to be respectful because I know Derry knows us. It's like, what's the point? Let's just do the talking in the ring.
Absolutely. It's mad to think how long ago that first fight was. I know it was asked in the press conference today, but we really can't even put that fight into consideration. But you as a trainer, do you even look back at that fight? There's been so much time that's passed where both fighters could be called kind of different fighters, not specifically in style, but just as you mature, you are kind of a different fighter. So do we take any notice of that fight?
Not really, because it was so far back, and like I said, I can remember when the fight was being made, it was really probably a fight what shouldn't be made at that time, because they were both on a good trajectory, and they could have gone a different route, and then it could have been a bigger fight down the line. But it was a fight that was made, and like I say, there's so much going on in between, like with the sparring and everything else, that it changed every time. Every time we went to spar Jazza or Jazza came over to Sheffield, it was always a different spar. Everything changed all the time. So you could never look back and think, oh yeah, it's consistently Galahad's getting the top side of him or Jazza's getting the top side of Galahad. It was always a different way. It was always something different. Everything, it was always neck and neck and quite even. So, the fight itself turned out harder. The first fight turned out harder than we expected because they'd sparred previous to that, and Galahad was, got on top of him quite a few times, but he came with a different game plan in the fight, Jazza, and fair play to him. They thought about what they were doing, and it took for Galahad to really go through the gear, step up and stop him to win the fight. But we're just not even looking at that, even from a psychological point of view. I'm stopping him or whatever. Jazza's matured a lot since then, and so has Galahad. So he got his jaw broke by Rigandao and came back from that, and he's had adversity in his career anyway, but he's always come back. And like I say, in this game, you've got to make the opportunity, create the opportunity, or take the opportunity to get where you need to get. And if you're quitting boxing too early, you're never going to get where you need to be. Look at Lee Wood last week. He's been in boxing a long time. He's had ups and downs, got beat by Jazza, but he's turned out a world champion. And that's the thing with boxing, you've got to stick in it. And that's what Jazza's done, where a lot of people have fell by the wayside. He's just carried on fighting, taking what comes along, changed trainers, took fights, probably shouldn't have took fights. And he's back here, he's back in a world title fight, which is fantastic, because that's his quality. That's where he's come from as an amateur through the amateur system. He's always had that pedigree to get there, and the opportunity's been created now. So, and the same for Galahad.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about that. I mean, when you hear Lee Wood speak and kind of see where Lee Wood was in his career like 4 years ago, I mean, he didn't win a major title until he was past 30. So I think it just goes to show what you're saying is absolutely true. You stick at it, and what he's won over the last 2 or 3 years, topped off with a WBA title the other day, is quite incredible.
I always like to go back to to Johnny Nelson, and Johnny Nelson boxed everybody. He lost 2 world title fights before he won one, and it was almost like all the good guys fell by the wayside. He fought the good guys earlier in his career, champions. He got beat, and eventually coming back into his 30s, he beat Cole Thompson, who was a good champion at the time, but he just kept on going. Win, lose or draw, he just kept going, and eventually he got to the last opportunity, which called something, because I just knew I couldn't lose it at this stage. I didn't have more years in front of me. It was a do-or-die situation. He goes, before, they weren't really do-or-die situations for me. And maybe a bit like Lee Wood, he's got to come into the end of his career, he's 30-odd. He's got to make some money. He's invested a lot of time and energy into this career. And, you know, when he has had downs, he didn't pack up, he just carried on. And that's what you've got to do. It's like, you want to win the lottery, buy a ticket. And that's what it is in boxing. If you don't keep fighting and fighting and fighting, then you're never going to win a title, are you? And that's how it is, and that's where Jazza is, that's where Galahad is, that's where Lee Wood is, that's where so many fighters have been. It's sticking it out, you know, to the end, and until you decide to pack up, and generally, you know, it will pay off if you're good enough.
I know this fight wasn't a long time ago, but is Kid Galahad different to the one that faced Warrington?
He's not different. No, he's not different to the. He's the same. You know, there were certain things what happened in that camp in the build up to that fight, and you know, on Saturday when Galahad wins the fight, we'll probably have an interview and we'll explain where, you know, it didn't go all right, but I still think he won that fight. Not in the fashion that we wanted to, because we had a different way we were going to do it, but he made use of the best situation he was in, and I thought he'd won that fight 8 rounds to 4. But you know, you've got to kill somebody in their hometown to win that title. And you know, for me, it wasn't the performance that we were planning with Galahad, but there's reasons why. But we're never going to make excuses. We're never going to sit back and say it was this and that and the other. We'll see how Saturday goes. I'm expecting Galahad to win, and then, you know, we'll have an interview and we'll go through that Warrington fight, and you know, there'll be no excuses. And then hopefully Warrington wins against Laura, and you know, it wasn't a great fight. The styles didn't gel, but hopefully, you know, they can get that fight back on again. It'll be a great fight. There's a few kids named the mix. Lee Wood. There's Warrington, there's Galahad, there's obviously people like Jordan Gill coming through. There's lots, you know, it's interesting. Conlon, there's loads of fights coming through, and that could be interesting. Now Eddie's got all this, and he's prepared to put everybody in with each other. It's going to be good.
Obviously, Warrington has got that rematch with Lara, which is a huge fight in Leeds on the 4th of September. He will be here ringside, I understand, to watch the fight between Kid Galahad and Galahad-Dickens. So you're right, just a lot rides on kind of what happens on Saturday, and then there's a lot of interesting matchups that can be made very easily. Well,
yeah, but you think about it, you know, whichever way it is, you know, who wins and loses on Saturday, Jazza or Barry, there's always going to be other fights. You know, for Lee Wood, for Jazza, you know, I think he's going to get beat. He's going to drop straight into a fight with Lee Wood. They're both with MTK, I think. That makes sense. Why not? You know, Jazza's beat Lee Wood. Lee Wood probably wants revenge. It'll make a great fight for a rematch, because it was a good fight the first time out. Warrington's in the background there. You know, hopefully beats Laura. It's going to be an odd fight, because, you know, I just don't think Warrington was right on that night, and he's got to have a good game plan to beat Laura. He's got to box him, and it's not really the thing what Warrington does. You know, he can't go out gung-ho and think, well, I'll just try and overpower him. He's got to be a bit smarter, and if he's smart and you know, he thinks about what he's doing, he can beat Laura. But if he goes back into fight mode, it could end up the same result. So hopefully they've had a look at that one, and you know, he's got his plan worked out. But you know, there's 4 or 5 decent fighters, 6 fighters maybe, who can all fight each other, and they can be made interesting fights.
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke a little bit off camera, but Bradley Skeete is training with you at the moment. Any news on when we could see him in the ring next?
You know, he had a little fiddle around fight in Sheffield. It was not a nothing. It was a nothing fight really, just to get him, you know, shake the rust off. He's had some good sparring. He sparred Michael McKinson. That was a great spar. Who's an up and coming prospect. And we're just having a look around there for, you know, where we can get him out next. We've had some offers for fights, and we'll just have a look at them abroad, obviously. But you know, I think Bradley Skeete's probably got 1 or 2 years left in him. He's not got any wear and tear, and he's looking very good in training. He sparred Liam Williams, sparred Kell, Brook. I mean, he's great sparring. He's very, you know, he's a very skillful fighter. He's a hit and, you know, not get hit type of fighter. So, you know, he brings something into the Ingle gym. He's great for sparring, and he's fresh. You know, and he's rejuvenated, and hopefully we can get something. You know, one of the British promoters and get him in some decent fights.
So is Kell in training at the moment?
Yeah, Kell's been back maybe 6 or 7 weeks, very slowly, steadily. Back in training, he's been sparring, body sparring, runs, weights, getting slowly back in shape. So they're talking about, you know, fighting in October. Who it's going to be, I don't know, but he wants to have another fight. So he's looking all right in the gym. We've got a few weeks to go yet before he starts doing open sparring, but there's plenty there for him. Liam Williams, you know, Willie Hutchinson. There's some good spars there for him, and we'll just see what he's got left.
Dom, have you seen the latest comments over the last 24 hours by Mr. Amir Khan?
You know what? I don't really read Amir Khan stuff, because, you know, he's this star on reality TV and with the Khans and stuff. I just don't watch it because I just, for me, people like Amir Khan, I only want to be interested if they're talking about fighting somebody. And there's been so much hot air in the past that I just think I don't even got him on my Twitter feed, so I don't bother watching it. No, what's he said?
Well, the gist of it was saying that the fight has to happen this year.
Well, if that's what it is, maybe that's the fight they're talking about. But everything's under wraps at the minute. So there has been talk of it. There's been talk of it for years. So you just take it. I just take it with a pinch of salt. We just train for the day. And if that's going to happen this year, fantastic. Hopefully it's going to happen this year, because if it doesn't happen this year, I don't think there's going to be happening. Nothing next year is going to happen. I think it's probably the last fight for both of them. They're both coming to the end of their careers. They're both not the fighters they were 2 or 3 years ago. So let's get it on while we can. But I didn't know he did that. I don't really look at Amir Khan's social media stuff, to be honest.
Well, I mean, this obviously in comparisons to the whole Witter-Hatton thing that didn't ever materialise, but this was being compared to a fight that we've wanted for the last sort of 6-7 years that is in danger. If you're right, if it doesn't happen this year, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was great at the time, the Witter-Hatton thing, but you know what, if I'd have been Ricky Hatton, I'd never fought Junior Witter. Why would you? He was like a banana skin when it was going to be hard work, and it would have been great for us because we had Junior Witter, but Ricky had a fantastic career, he had some great fights, and he went in with the best. Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao obviously didn't get the results that he did. But up until that point, he beat Costa Zoo. He had some great fights. He was entertaining. Them nights in Manchester, 20,000 people. It was fantastic nights. We had some good fighters on them bills. They were great times, and that's what we need. We've got Anthony Joshua who fills out stadiums, but we need another fighter who can do out, fill out 20,000 seater stadiums. Somebody else. Who have we got at the minute? We were looking for that next door, aren't we?
Well, yes. I mean, I've raised this question many a times. I think after Anthony Joshua, and I suppose, listen, you put in Tyson Fury in with Anthony Joshua, it does whatever. But Anthony Joshua, after that as a pay-per-view star, then who are we looking at then? Like, forget the heavyweights for the moment, because obviously Dillian White headlines pay-per-view shows, Tyson Fury does, Anthony Joshua does. But below that, like, where is the next kind of 20,000 at the O2 like that sold out in a day? Where's that start?
And that's what we're looking for, aren't we? We're looking for that fighter, and I'm looking through. There's some good kids coming through, but I don't see them fighters, emerging at the minute. I know we've got Conor Benn coming through, and we've got all these other fighters, but it's not. They haven't got that. For me, they just haven't got that appeal yet. They haven't got that build up. So where we're going to be, and hopefully, this deal what Eddie's got with his own, people get opportunities. We're going to start developing fighters coming through, because that's what it's about. Sometimes fighters are getting put in fights a bit too soon. Maybe, you got to develop fighters a bit better. You can't just put these fighters in when they're not really ready for it. And I'm just trying to think of the fights. Avassayan against Josh Kelly. Great, but I think it was just a bit too soon for Josh Kelly. I don't think, he might have wanted that fight, but David Evaneson, whatever, he's a seasoned pro. We had him sparring Kell, and I think maybe he just went in a bit too soon with that. You know what I mean? He should have probably just waited a bit longer, had a few more fights, and maybe he could have been, because he has got a good style. And sometimes them type of fights can ruin a fighter. So, we're looking for the next one, aren't we? We're looking for the next star.
Dominic, do you not think, you just mentioned there Conor Benn, that out of kind of those kind of crop of fighters coming through at the moment in terms of like personality, marketability, the ability to fight as well, Conor Benn kind of is the next one potentially that could tick all those boxes? The
thing is, yeah, maybe he is, but unfortunately, from my generation and even people below me, we've got this thing in his mind where we think Conor Benn, Nigel Benn, and if he's not doing what his dad's doing, then he's not a fight. He's not the bee's knees, but he probably is. But I'm looking and thinking, well, he fights a bit like his dad, but he's not turning him over like his dad. He's not going in with that kind of approach that his dad has. It's just the mindset that you've got. So for me, he's like, he's not. When I used to watch Nigel Benn when he was, 22, 23, 20, he was just ripping through everybody, and you just never. It was all or nothing. And sometimes you don't see that with Conor Benn. He's beating people in front of him, but I think he just needs that test, doesn't he, to cement himself. So he's got to beat somebody, who's half decent for people to really take note of him and think, yeah, you know what, he can dig in and have a fight.
Well, he was calling out Amir Khan not too long ago.
Listen, that is a fight, innit? And that's the thing. But, you can understand from, and I think Eddie would make that fight, but I think from Amir Khan's point of view, he probably thinks I'm going to get more money fighting Brook and Kell Brook, and that's where Khan's at. It's not really whether I can beat that guy or not. He said, "Oh, am I going to get more money for? Who would you get more? Who do you think you get more money for? Would you get more money for Kell Brook or for Conor Benn?"
Well, he'd get more money for Kell Brook.
But what a fight Conor Benn and Amir Khan would be, and maybe because Kell spoiled Conor Benn. And I spoke to Conor Benn last time we were down here, and I've never spoken to him before, and I said, Kell Brook speaking highly of you. I said, he sparred you. I said, he was surprised. He says, because you don't particularly look anything. He says, and you give him a few surprises. And Kell said, yeah, he has got something. He goes, and he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He says, but he's going to be one to watch, but he's just got to be brought along steadily, because he didn't have a lot of amateur fights. I don't think he had any amateur fights, did he? Really. So that's where they like the experience of going through it all. So what a great fight it would be. Maybe Conor Benn a few more. The winner of Kell Brook and Amir Khan. That'd be the crossroad fight for Conor Benn. They're really coming down the end of the career on the dip, and he's on the ascendancy. So imagine catching them, because boxing's about timing. Imagine catching them at the right time. Everybody wrote off Nigel Benn against Gerald McClellan, and look what he did. McClellan was bashing everybody. Nobody gave Nigel Benn a shout for that fight, and the first round looked like it were all over, and look what he did. So that would be an interesting fight. Maybe that's the fight.
Be a promoter, Dominic.
No, I think Eddie's the man for promoting. Look what he's done. He's done a fantastic job. He's making the fights. You get beat, he puts you in another fight. You get beat, he puts you in another fight. Everybody gets the chance. And, they brought around several times, aren't they? Look how well Derek Chisora has done. Look at the jobs he's done with everybody else. Yeah, as long as you're in an exciting fight, with Eddie, as long as you're prepared to fight again and jump in again, he'll give you the fights. And that's what you need in boxing. You don't want to be sidelined after getting beat once. You can get beat for a number of reasons. Give people 2 or 3 opportunities. That's what all boxers want to do is fight. They want to win, but they want to be given the opportunity. And, over the last few years, I've seen in boxing where these prospects get beat and then they get thrown to one side, nobody bothers with them again. Put them back in again, put them and build, put them in the fights and see what they've got, because you can't just judge somebody on one loss. There's too much emphasis on, unbeaten records. Somebody's going to get beat in a fight, and that's the top and bottom of it. So make the exciting fights. What a good fight Anthony Fowler and Liam Smith is. Brilliant. Fantastic. It's a great fight. Liam Smith's quality fighter. Anthony Fowler's on the way up again, both from Liverpool. Liam Smith, he got beat recently, put up a good fight apparently, and that's going to tell us the measure of Anthony Fowler. We've had Anthony down at the gym loads of times sparring Liam Williams, quality operator. Liam Smith beat Liam Williams, so let's see where it's all going to end up. It's a cracking fight. Cracking fight.
A lot of good fights to look forward to, but before anything else, Saturday night in Eddie Hearn's back garden, a new British world champion will be crowned. Yeah,
Eddie's done a great job with that. We've obviously, it's come round and Jazza got the shout. We thought it was going to be Jazza. And, fighters want to fight. It's going to be a good fight. I'm obviously going to put money on Galahad. He hasn't boxed for a year and a half, but look, he's consistent. I know Jazz has been at the activity, but he hasn't boxed since December. And, listen, whether it's 8 months out the ring, 12 months out the ring, 18 months out the ring, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how you live your life in between the fights, what kind of training you do, how you approach stuff. And like I said earlier on in the press conference today, at this level, when you're in your 30s, look, it's like mentally you know what you're doing. It's not like you need to be fighting every, 3 or 4 months. You can have time out as long as you keep yourself in a place where, within 10 weeks you can be ready for a fight. And the thing with Galahad is he's systematic in what he does. He's the ultimate pro. And, Jazz is a good fighter, but I think Barry's he's not going to be denied this time, against winning a world title. He's just not. He's got his mind on it. He's just lived his life like a monk. And, not taking anything away from Jazz. I think Jazz is a great fighter. But, when he has come up, there's only been 2 quality fighters beating Rigando and Barry. All right, he got beat against it with Thomas Patrick Ward. A bit of a close fight. I think it was a cut or something like that in the end. But, I think Barry's just a level above Jazza. Jazza's a very good fighter. But I think the mindset of Barry, the way he carries himself, the way he performs, especially in his last fight, when the pressure's on, he's going to beat Jazza on Saturday.
Well, not long to find out. Got the weigh-in tomorrow, and then Saturday night it's showtime. So, Dominic, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. As always, have you got anything else you'd like to add?
No, like I say, it's glad the boxing's back on. The face masks are out of the way. No chance of me shoving plastic bottles into my visor, is there, and making a fool of myself. But I'm glad they're out of the way, and we can get back to normal boxing and get some crowds in and get back, boxing back to where it needs to be. But it'll go down in history this morning. These back garden fights and the lockdown fights and no audiences, and hopefully we never see them again, because boxing's so much better when we've got crowds and we've got atmosphere and we've got people socialising and interacting. That's what boxing's all about. Boxing, music, sport brings everybody together, and I think that's what we've missed in the last 18 months. We need it back, don't we?
Absolutely, very well said. Dominic, thank you very much. I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening, and then you'll be preparing for tomorrow's weigh-in. So, yeah, we'll speak at some point over the weekend.
No problem, KUGAN. Always nice speaking, thanks.